My canoe was in the photograph, green hull, faded to the color of old copper, pulled up on the shore the way I leave it every autumn. Underneath it, in clean type on a stranger's printout, $680,000. A listing price for my house. A house I had not put up for sale. I had come to the door because the step creaked. That sounds strange to say, but it is true. I heard it the way you hear something that belongs to you, the specific pitch of that particular board under a weight that wasn't mine. My father built that step in the summer of 1971, and it has spoken ever since, a low complaint of wood settling against wood, and I know by now every version of its voice. The sound of my own foot. The sound of a delivery driver stopping short. The sound of something heavier, less familiar. I had been in the shop. Saturday mornings are mine. That is not a rule I have ever written down or explained to anyone. It is simply how it has been since I retired from contracting 4 years ago. I wake before 6, I make coffee in the kitchen, the mocha pot my daughter sent me from Montreal, which takes 7 minutes and smells the way I imagine Italy probably doesn't, and I carry the cup out to the shop and set it on the corner of the workbench and forget about it. I was halfway through a set of cabinet doors for the Petersons down the road. Figured maple, quarter sawn, the grain running in those fine parallel lines that take light differently depending on where you stand. I was using a card scraper, which takes patience, and patience was something I had in surplus that morning. I heard the step. The man was in his late 30s, maybe 40. He wore a vest over a fleece, the kind of outfit that means a person has come from somewhere else. The woman beside him was younger, dark hair pulled back, holding a phone with a map on the screen. They were both looking past me, into the front hall, the way people do when they are already calculating square footage. "Mr. Hayworth?" the man said. I told him yes. He held out the paper. The same listing. 4-bedroom lakeside property in Rideau Lakes, Ontario. Photos from the road, from the dock. "We had a 10 o'clock showing," he said. "With Carling Realty." I have been in construction long enough to know what it feels like when something gives way beneath your feet. Not the noise of it, the noise comes after. It is the half second of wrongness before, the moment your weight goes somewhere it was not supposed to go. That is what I felt standing in my own doorway with a stranger's printout in my hand. "There's been a mistake," I said. I gave the paper back. I was polite about it. I told them I was sorry for their trouble, that the listing was not authorized, that they should contact the agent directly. The man looked annoyed. The woman put her phone away with the particular efficiency of someone recalibrating. They left. I watched their car back out onto the county road and turn south. I went inside. I closed the door. The step creaked once more as I came back through. I keep a laptop on the kitchen table mostly for video calls with my daughter. I opened it, typed my address into the search bar. The listing was real. It had been active for 11 days. 6 photographs. The exterior shots had been taken in what looked like late August, at least 6 weeks ago. The interior shots were stock images, a generic bright kitchen, a living room with furniture I didn't own. Whoever had done this had not been inside. They had listed what they could see from the outside and filled in the rest. The agent name was Carling Realty, Ottawa office. The contact listed was a property manager on behalf of the vendor. On behalf of Darcy Ratchford. I sat with that for a while. Darcy is my niece. The daughter of my sister Elsa, who died of pancreatic cancer 4 years ago March. I was the one who drove up to Ottawa when Elsa was first diagnosed, stayed 3 weeks, slept on her couch, took her to appointments at the General when she was too tired to argue about it. Darcy was 29 then, working in property management already, good at her job the way organized people are good at things, filing everything, following up. She handled her mother's estate with the same efficiency. There was not much to handle. Elsa had lived simply. At the reception after the funeral, Darcy held on to me for a long time. She smelled like her mother's soap, that green Irish Spring bar Elsa always kept by the sink, and it caught me off guard. She said our grandmother always told her I was the one who held the family together. I thought she was just saying something to say at a funeral. Most things said at funerals are like that. You file them under comfort and move on. I had not spoken to Darcy since last Christmas. A text. She sent a photo of her cat with a Santa hat on, and I sent back a picture of the snow off the dock. That was the whole of it. I picked up my phone. Called her number. It rang through to voicemail, her voice, brisk and professional, asking me to leave a message and she'd get back to me shortly. I didn't leave one. I sat in the kitchen a while longer. The mocha pot was still on the stove. I got up, poured the coffee, cold by now, the kind of cold that takes on a metallic edge, and drank it anyway, standing at the window, looking out at the lake. The maples along the far shore were almost done. A few red leaves still hanging on, but most of it was bare now, the branches gray and fine against the overcast. The water was that still, heavy gray of October, not quite a mirror, not quite opaque. I have lived here most of my adult life and I still cannot say what color it is exactly. It changes too much. My father had the same problem when he was painting the dock. He tried 3 shades and finally stopped trying and just painted it brown. The listing was from Carling Realty. The power of attorney document, if there was one, would be on file with the land registry. I knew this because I spent 30 years as a general contractor in Eastern Ontario and I have seen more property paperwork than most lawyers. I know what a transfer looks like. I know what a forgery looks like. I know the difference between someone who made an honest clerical mistake and someone who built a structure designed to hold weight. This was not a clerical mistake. I washed out the coffee cup. I set it on the drying rack. I went back out to the shop, but I didn't pick up the scraper. I stood at the bench with my hands flat on the surface and looked at the cabinet doors I'd been working, the grain of the figured maple going pale and dark as the clouds moved outside. Would like that takes time to read. You have to look at it from different angles before you understand what you're actually working with. I was thinking about Darcy. Not the Darcy who listed my house. The other one. The 10-year-old who sat on this same workbench with her feet dangling, watching me cut dovetails, asking whether the teeth on the saw went toward you or away from you when you pushed. I told her toward, always toward, because the wood cuts on the pull stroke. She made me say it twice because she wanted to be sure she had it right. I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about the last thing her mother ever said to me, which was in a hospital room in Ottawa at 2 in the morning, and which I have not repeated to anyone. I needed to know if there was a power of attorney document filed in my name. And I needed Darcy to have no idea that I already knew. I picked up the phone again. This time I called back, not to leave a message, but to listen to her voice one more time, the professional cadence of it, the way she said shortly like a promise. Then I hung up before the beep. The step creaked when I went back inside. I was making a list. The land registry office in Smiths Falls opens at 8:30 on weekdays. I was there at 8:45, Monday morning, wearing the same canvas jacket I wear to the lumber yard. It has my name on the breast pocket, stitched on when I used to run a crew, and I have never bothered to remove it. The woman at the counter knew me by sight if not by name. I had pulled permits here for 30 years. I asked to see the transaction history on my property. She printed it without comment. I took the pages to a table by the window and read them the way I read a set of structural drawings. Start at the corners, work inward, look for the thing that doesn't add up before you try to understand the thing that does. It was there. A power of attorney document, filed 6 weeks prior. Granting Darcy Ratchford full authority to manage, lease, or sell the property at my address on behalf of Holt Hayworth. Notarized. Signed, allegedly, by me. I looked at the signature for a long time. It was close. Whoever had practiced it had been careful. The H had the right lean, the way mine does when I'm signing quickly, and the W had the loop I picked up from my father, who signed his name the same way. But the pressure was wrong. I know this because I spent years signing contracts in the field, on clipboards, in the back of trucks, on my knee. My signature has a particular weight to it, heavier on the downstrokes, light at the finish. This one was even throughout. Someone had copied the shape but not the hand behind it. I folded the pages, put them in my jacket pocket, and drove home. Soren was in his yard when I turned onto the road, splitting wood with the kind of unhurried efficiency that comes from doing the same task for 40 years. He is 71, former OPP, and he has the quality I have only ever seen in a handful of people: he does not fill silence with words. When I showed him what I had, he read it standing up, one hand still holding the maul. Then he set the maul down against the log pile and read it again. "The signature's forged," I said. "I can see that." He looked up. "Has she taken any money?" "There's an inquiry on the listing. Someone offered below ask. She hasn't responded yet, far as I can tell. Then the fraud clock hasn't fully run." He handed the pages back. "You'd be filing a forgery complaint with the OPP, potentially wire fraud if any funds move. It'll take time. They'll want documentation, the original deed, anything showing chain of title, your ID. You'll need a lawyer to move on the listing itself, get it pulled." I nodded. I already knew most of this. I had not come to Soren for information. I had come because I needed to say the words out loud to another person before I decided what to do next. "She's coming for dinner Saturday," I said. He looked at me. "You already called her?" "Before I came here." He picked the maul back up, turned back to the log. "All right," he said. That was the whole conversation. I drove back to my house. I made a second pot of coffee, the regular drip machine this time, not the mocha pot, which requires attention I wasn't going to give it. I sat at the kitchen table and called my lawyer in Perth, a man named Gerald Beecham who has been handling my property matters for 20 years and who picks up the phone himself instead of putting you through to an assistant. I told him what I had found. He was quiet for a moment, the particular quiet of someone calculating. "Pull the listing today," he said. "I'll contact Carling Realty directly, inform them the power of attorney is fraudulent and the property is not authorized for sale. That stops the clock on any potential transaction. Then you bring me the documents from the land registry and we file to have the POA voided." "Can you do it without her knowing yet?" A pause. "I can pull the listing without alerting her, yes. Carling will know. Whether they tell their vendor is their business, but I'd guess they pull it quietly to protect themselves." I thanked him. We hung up. I sat there listening to the drip machine finish its cycle. The listing came down by Thursday afternoon. I checked. No record of it anywhere on Realtor.ca, not even in the sold or expired filters. Gerald had been efficient. Darcy did not call. I went back to the cabinet doors. The figured maple has a quality that frustrates some woodworkers. It reads differently under different lights, and what looks like a flaw in the morning can look like the whole point of the piece by afternoon. My father used to say you don't choose figured wood. It chooses you, meaning you have to accept that you cannot fully control what it does. He said this about people too, occasionally, though he was not a man who spoke about people very often. Friday night, Darcy called. I was in the shop. I heard the phone from the kitchen. I keep the volume loud now, a habit from when my hearing started going in my left ear, and I came inside and picked up. "Uncle Holt." Warm. Easy. The voice she uses when she wants something and doesn't want you to know she wants it. I recognized it because it is also the voice Elsa used, back when things between us were complicated and she was working up to something. "Hi, Darcy. Still on for tomorrow?" I was thinking I'd drive down Friday night, actually, get in before it's dark. "If that's okay." "Fine by me," I said. "I'll bring that wine you like. The Pinot from the Elgin Street shop." She knew which one. Elsa had taken her there years ago, before things went sideways between them, before whatever version of events had calcified in Elsa's mind into the story Darcy grew up believing. "That'd be nice," I said. A pause. "Small, but there. How are you doing out there?" "It's getting cold." "I'm fine. I worry sometimes." You're out there on your own, and the winters, Darcy. I kept my voice even. The way you keep a plane even when you feel the resistance in the wood, not by forcing, by adjusting. I've lived here 38 years. I know what winter looks like. I know you do. Another pause. I just think about you. She said it gently. And here is the thing I could not get away from, lying in bed that night with the lake black outside the window and the first frost already forming on the dock boards, she probably meant it. I do not think Darcy is incapable of caring about me. I think she has arranged the facts of her life in a particular order, and in that order, what she is doing makes sense to her. She is not lying to me the way a stranger lies. She is lying to me the way someone lies when they have told the same story to themselves for so long they no longer recognize it as a story. I know something about that. I knew Elsa for 63 years. She arrived Saturday at 4:30, just as the light was going orange across the water. I heard the car in the lane first, then the step, her weight on it, lighter than mine, a different note. I had soup on the stove, the squash one I make every autumn when the farm stand on Highway 15 puts out the big hubbats. Darcy came in through the front, holding the wine in one hand and a canvas toad in the other, wearing a quilted vest over a striped crewneck, hair down, cheeks red from the cold. She hugged me at the door. She smells like her mother still, or maybe I only notice it because I am looking for it. It smells incredible in here, she said. Soup. Sit down. We ate at the kitchen table, the same table where I had sat with the laptop 3 days before. She talked about her work, a commercial property she was managing in Canada, a difficult tenant, the usual complications. I listened. I asked questions. I told her about the Petersons' cabinet doors, the challenge of the figured maple. She laughed at the right places. She poured the wine. It was the same Pinot, the dark labeled one from the Elgin Street shop, and it was good. I watched her. Not the way you watch someone you suspect. The way you watch someone you were trying to understand, trying to fit together the version of them sitting across from you eating soup and the version that filed a fraudulent document 6 weeks ago and waited to see what happened. She is 33 years old. She has her mother's eyes, that particular gray-green that goes darker in low light. She cuts her bread the same way Elsa did, tearing rather than slicing, holding the piece with both hands. Small things. The kind you only notice when you have known someone since they were new. Do you ever think about this place? I said. As a kid, when you used to come down. She looked up. Something moved across her face, not guilt exactly. Something more complicated. All the time, she said. Honestly. Those summers felt like the whole world. You used to swim out to the dock buoy. Your mother wouldn't. She hated cold water. Darcy laughed, a real one. She used to stand on the shore in her beach towel yelling at me to come back. She yelled at me too. Said I was encouraging you. You were. I was, I said. She looked down at her wine glass, turned the stem with her fingers. The candle between us caught the color of it, that deep burgundy going almost black in the low light. Outside, the first stars were up over the water. I miss her, Darcy said. I know. I miss the person I thought she was. She said it quietly, almost to the glass. That's the weird thing. The older I get, the more I realize I don't know if I actually knew her. What she thought. What she felt about things. I let that sit. It would have been easy, right then, to put the documents on the table. To say, I know what you've done. To watch the thing collapse. She had handed me the opening herself. I didn't take it. Not yet. Not because I wanted to protect her. Because I needed to know one more thing first. The thing Elsa said to me at 2 in the morning in that hospital room, which I had spent 4 years trying to figure out whether it was a confession or a wound or just the fever talking. I needed to know how much of it Darcy already knew. She talked about this house a lot, Darcy said. Toward the end. I kept my voice level. What did she say? That it should have been different. That things were, that she deserved more than she got. She looked up. I don't know. She was on a lot of medication. Things didn't always make sense. No, I said. They didn't. Darcy nodded. She took a sip of wine. She did not ask me what Elsa said at 2 in the morning, and I did not offer it, and we sat with the candle between us and the dark lake outside and the untouched truth laid out flat on the table between us like a set of drawings neither of us wanted to unfold. After dinner she helped me wash up. She dried the bowls the way she has always done it, setting them mouth down on the rack, which drives me slightly mad because they trap water. I did not say anything. I almost did, and then didn't, because there is something unbearable about correcting small things when large things are still unresolved. She left at 9. She hugged me again at the door. I'm glad I came, she said. Drive safe, I said. I listened to her car back out and turn north. Then I stood in the dark hallway for a while. On the kitchen table, inside the drawer that holds spare batteries and rubber bands and the warranty card for a kettle I no longer own, I had placed the documents that morning. The land registry printout. The forged power of attorney. And underneath both of them, in a yellow envelope that had gone soft at the corners from decades in a box, the agreement my father had drawn up in 1994, signed by Elsa and witnessed by a notary in Perth. The agreement that confirmed she had taken the money. Her portion, in full. That she had signed the house away with her own hand and known exactly what she was signing. I had not shown her any of it. I needed one more piece. I needed to know whether Darcy had found her mother's copy of that agreement, or whether she had been operating entirely on a story that had no document to support it, only a dead woman's word. Tomorrow I would call Gerald again. And I would ask him to look into something I should have checked years ago, whether Elsa had disclosed that payment anywhere. In her own estate records. In her taxes. Anywhere at all. Because if she hadn't, if she had spent 30 years telling Darcy a story about being cheated while quietly sitting on the proof of the opposite, then what Darcy had done was not greed. It was grief in the wrong direction. And I needed to know the difference before I decided what to do with it. Gerald called me back the following Tuesday. He had looked into Elsa's estate filing, filed through a probate lawyer in Ottawa after she died. The $40,000, the payment from 1994, did not appear anywhere in her declared assets. Not as received income. Not as a prior distribution. Not as a note explaining the imbalance between the two siblings. It simply wasn't there. As far as Elsa's estate was concerned, she had received nothing from the family. I sat with the phone in my hand for a moment after he finished. She hid it, I said. There's no other reasonable explanation, Gerald said. It was a significant amount of money in '94. It would have needed to be disclosed if it was meant to satisfy her inheritance claim. She chose not to disclose it. I thanked him. I set the phone down on the workbench. Outside, the last of the October leaves had come down in the night and the yard was covered in a flat mat of red and yellow, wet from the morning. The lake beyond the dock was the color of pewter. A pair of loons were out near the far shore, moving without apparent effort, the way they do before they go south. Elsa had taken $40,000 in the summer of 1994 and signed a notarized agreement releasing her claim to the house and land. Then she had kept the agreement hidden. She had told her daughter, told her for years, told her the way you tell things that have curdled into belief, that she had been cheated. That the house should have been hers. That Holt had something that belonged to them both. And at 2 in the morning, in a hospital room at the Ottawa General, with the machines going and the light low and the medication making everything permeable, Elsa had looked at me and said, I was wrong to let it get this far. I had not known then what she meant. I had thought she was talking about her health. About waiting too long to get checked, the way people do when they're afraid of what they'll find. I had held her hand and said it didn't matter now, and she had turned her face toward the window and not said anything else. She had meant the story. She had meant all of it. I drove into Perth on Wednesday and sat across from Gerald's desk and told him I wanted to proceed with the OPP report. Forgery of a power of attorney. Unauthorized listing of a property. I did not want to minimize it or hold any of it back. What Darcy had done was a crime, and I was not going to pretend otherwise because she was my sister's daughter and I had taught her to cut dovetails. But I also told him something else. I told him I wanted to call her first. Before the report was filed. I wanted to show her the agreement. Gerald looked at me for a moment. "That's your call," he said. "Legally it doesn't help or hurt you either way at this point. The listing is already pulled, the POA is being voided. The report is what it is." "I know," I said. He nodded. He did not ask me why. He has known me for 20 years and he understands, I think, that there are things that need to be done in a particular order not because the law requires it but because you require it of yourself. I called Darcy that evening. She picked up on the third ring. I told her to come back. I told her I had something to show her and I needed her to see it in person. I said it plainly, without heat. She was quiet for a long time. "Is this about the house?" she said. "Yes." Another long silence. I could hear her breathing. Then, "Okay." She came down Saturday. Again. The same drive, the same lane, the same creak of the step when she came through the door. She did not bring wine this time. She came in and stood in the front hall with her coat still on, and I could see she had been preparing herself the whole drive down. Preparing for a version of this conversation. Probably several versions. I told her to sit down. I made tea, the orange pico I keep in the red tin, which is the tea my mother used to make when something serious needed to be discussed at the kitchen table, as if the particular domestic ritual of it made hard things easier to enter. Darcy watched me do it. She did not take her coat off until I set the mug in front of her. I put 3 things on the table. The land registry printout. The forged power of attorney. The yellow envelope. I did not say anything. I let her look. She reached for the land registry document first. "Read it." Then the power of attorney. Her face did not do what I expected. She didn't go pale or look up at me with some kind of appeal. She went very still, the way a person goes still when they are holding something heavier than they anticipated. "I knew you'd find it," she said. Quietly. Almost to herself. "I know you did." She set the papers down. She looked at the yellow envelope without touching it. "What's that?" I opened it. I slid the 1994 agreement across the table. She read it slowly. I watched her eyes move across the page. I watched them stop at Elsa's signature, at the notary's stamp, at the dollar amount written out in my father's careful hand. $40,000. Received in full. In satisfaction of all inheritance claims. She set it down. She didn't speak for a long time. The kettle was still settling. Outside, a car passed on the county road, the sound of it coming and going, and then just the quiet of the lake. "She never told me," Darcy said. "I know. She used to." She stopped. Started again. "She told me she was left with nothing. That your parents gave you everything because you were the one who stayed, and she left, and they punished her for it. She said it her whole life. She said it when she was dying. She said something else, too, when she was dying," I said. I didn't understand it until now. Darcy looked up. She said she was wrong to let it get this far. I kept my voice even. I thought she was talking about her health. About waiting too long to get help. I sat there and told her it didn't matter and she turned away. I think now she wasn't talking about her health at all. Darcy put both hands flat on the table. Her jaw was tight. She was not going to cry in front of me, that was clear, but the effort of it was visible in the set of her shoulders, the way she was pressing her palms against the table as if she needed something solid. "I was trying to get back what was hers," she said. "I thought I was doing it for her. I know that. That doesn't make it right. No, I said. It doesn't. She looked at the documents again. At her mother's signature on the 1994 agreement, the signature of a woman who had known the whole time and told the story anyway. I thought about all the years that story had been running, quietly, in Darcy's mind. All the dinners and phone calls and small remarks that had accumulated into a conviction. Elsa had handed her daughter a version of the world and Darcy had built her life in it, not knowing it was constructed on a lie. That is not the same as being innocent. But it is not the same as being the kind of person who wakes up in the morning looking for someone to harm. The report has to be filed, I said. I won't pretend it doesn't. Gerald's already moving to void the power of attorney, and the OPP will need to see what was filed in my name. That's not something I can undo or choose not to do. She nodded. She had known this too, I think, the whole drive down. Whatever happens with that, I said, is between you and them. I'm not going to push for more than what's necessary to protect the property. That's all I've ever wanted out of this. She looked at me. Something in her face shifted, not relief, exactly. More like the thing that comes after bracing for impact when the impact turns out to be smaller than you prepared for. Not fine. Not resolved. Just smaller. I'm sorry, she said. I know. She left in the early afternoon. She hugged me at the door, briefly, the way you hug someone when you are not sure what the hug means anymore but you do it anyway because the alternative is walking out without one. I stood in the doorway and watched her car go up the lane and turn north, the same direction as last week, the same pale sky above the cedars. The OPP file went in the following week. Soren helped me understand the process, what would happen and in what order, what I could expect. It was slow and procedural and unglamorous, the way most legal things are. Gerald handled Carling Realty. The power of attorney was voided. The listing stayed down. I don't know what will happen to Darcy. I don't say that to be vague about it. I genuinely don't. Forgery charges in Ontario move slowly, and outcomes depend on things I'm not in a position to predict. She has a lawyer now, she called to tell me that, one brief voicemail, professional and careful. I didn't call back. I don't know what I would say. What I know is this, she is 33 years old and she grew up believing a story that wasn't true. She acted on it in a way that was wrong. Those two things are both true at the same time and neither one of them cancels the other out. I have spent most of my adult life in construction. You can understand exactly why a structure failed and still need to tear it down. The cabinet doors are done. I delivered them to the Petersons 2 weeks after everything settled. They fit the way they were supposed to fit, the figured maple catching the kitchen light the way I knew it would, that rippling shift of pale and dark depending on where you stand. Donna Peterson ran her hand along the face frame and said she'd never had anything that beautiful in her kitchen. I told her the wood did most of the work. That is true, mostly. Winter came early this year. There was snow by the 3rd week of November, a proper one, the kind that stays. The dock is pulled in for the season, the canoe upturned in the shed. The lake has that deep, still quality it gets in cold months, more solid looking than it is, the surface holding the gray sky up. Some mornings I stand at the kitchen window with my coffee and look at it and think about Elsa. Not with anger. I am not sure I ever had room for anger, there was too much else in the way of it. I think about her the way you think about someone who kept something from you for so long that the keeping became part of who they were, something they couldn't set down even when they wanted to. I think about that hospital room. I think about what she was trying to say. I think about Darcy, too. The 10-year-old version, on the workbench with her feet dangling, asking me which way the teeth go on the saw. Toward, I told her. Always toward. The wood cuts on the pole. This morning I went out to get the mail. The air had that particular cold clarity that comes after a fresh snow, everything sharpened down to its outlines. I came up the front walk and put my foot on the step and it creaked the way it always does, that low familiar complaint of old wood bearing weight. I stopped. I stood there on the step for a moment, one hand on the door frame, and I listened to it. Not past it, the way I usually do. Just listened. The sound my father's hands made in 1971, driving the nails in straight, fitting the board to the frame with the care of a man who built things to last. He always said he was going to fix it. I am glad he never did. People ask me sometimes, not often, but sometimes, what it is like to live alone out here. They mean it kindly. They imagine the winters are hard, the silence too much, the distance from things a kind of cost. I never know quite how to answer them, so mostly I don't. I say it suits me. Which is true, though not the whole of it. The whole of it is harder to explain. It has to do with knowing a place so completely that it stops requiring your attention. The way the light moves across the kitchen floor in February, low and long, dragging the shadow of the window frame all the way to the far wall by mid-afternoon. The sound the canoe makes against the shed wall in a west wind, that hollow knock I hear from the bedroom before I'm fully awake. The particular hesitation in the water pump when the temperature drops below -15 and I haven't wrapped the line properly. These things ask nothing of me except to already know them. That is not loneliness. It is more like fluency. What I keep returning to, in the weeks since, is the yellow envelope. I have put it back in the box where it lived for 30 years, back with my father's other documents, the original deed, the survey maps, the inspection report from when I bought out my sister's claim with my own contractor's savings and a handshake from a notary in Perth. All of it folded, labeled in my father's handwriting, fitted into the same shoebox he kept on the top shelf of the closet off the kitchen. The box smells like the inside of an old filing cabinet. It smells like the 1980s. I put the envelope back because I did not know what else to do with it, and because it belongs there, among the things my father made the effort to preserve. Elsa's signature is on that page. Her real signature, not the practiced copy on the forged power of attorney, but the actual hand of my sister at 31, when she was young and certain and had just made a decision she would spend the rest of her life reinterpreting. I looked at it again before I put it away. It looks like her. The way she held a pen with that slight leftward slant, pressing too hard at the start of each letter. She always pressed too hard. I used to tease her about it when we were kids. I don't know if she ever meant to tell Darcy the truth. I don't know if she told herself she would do it when the time was right, and then the time was never right, and then it was too late. I don't know if she understood, at the end, that the story she had told was a document of its own, something that would outlast her, carry her signature in another way. What I know is that she tried to say something at 2 in the morning when the morphine was high and the room was quiet and I was the only one there. And I filed it wrong. I put it under the wrong heading and moved on. That is mine to sit with. Not hers anymore. The step will creak again tomorrow morning. And the morning after. It has been creaking since before Darcy was born, since before I owned this property, since before I understood the difference between a thing that needs fixing and a thing that only sounds broken. My father built it that way, not on purpose, but not entirely by accident either. He was a man who knew the difference between a flaw and a characteristic. He just never bothered to explain which was which. I think I am starting to understand what he meant.